Hello, my dear ones. Today we are diving into a situation where emotions spilled over the edge, control was lost, and the truth came out in the most unexpected way. This is exactly the kind of moment when masks fall off, when a person stops filtering words and suddenly says, "What has been living inside for a long time?" Before we start, I want to remind you that I do personal tarot readings. Right now, the price for personal readings is very low. So if you feel that you need clarity exactly in your situation, if you want answers that are only about you and your story, you can contact me. Let's move on to the topic of our video. What exactly made your ex start drinking that night? When I look into this, I don't see random fun or a simple desire to relax. This was an emotional overflow. Something inside him reached a point where holding it all together became impossible. It feels like the day itself pressed on old wounds, memories connected to you, and unresolved thoughts. He wasn't drinking because life was good. He was drinking because something inside him cracked, and alcohol became a way to loosen the grip he keeps on himself every single day. What emotional state was he in before he took the first drink? Before the first glass, he already felt heavy. Not angry in an explosive way, but tired emotionally. There's a sense of inner loneliness here, even if he was surrounded by people. He carried unspoken thoughts, things he never dared to say to you directly. It's that quiet sadness mixed with irritation at himself. Outwardly calm, inwardly very restless. Was this drinking spontaneous or planned in advance? This doesn't look carefully planned. It feels impulsive. The decision came suddenly, like, I can't deal with this right now. One emotion triggered another, and the idea of drinking appeared as an escape hatch. Not something he prepared for days ahead, but something that felt necessary in that exact moment. Who or what triggered him emotionally that day? The trigger connects directly to you, even if your name wasn't spoken out loud at first. It could have been a memory, a message, a photo, or even hearing something about your life. There's also a sense of comparison here, like he looked at himself and realized he is not where he wanted to be. That contrast hit him hard. Was he thinking about you before he started drinking? Your energy was already on his mind, not in a light, casual way, but more like background noise that never really shuts off. He might have tried to distract himself, but thoughts about you kept surfacing. That inner dialogue, the what if and I should have thoughts, were already active before the alcohol entered the picture. Did he drink because of longing for you? Longing played a role, but not in a romantic movie style. It was more aching, more uncomfortable. Missing you reminded him of what he lost and what he failed to protect. Alcohol became a way to soften that feeling, to numb the ache rather than face it sober. Did he drink because of guilt connected to you? Guilt is present here, but he doesn't fully admit it to himself when sober. Under the influence, that guilt starts to leak out. He knows on some level that he handled things wrong. He knows he hurt you, or at least didn't show up the way he should have. Drinking allowed that suppressed awareness to rise closer to the surface. Did he drink to suppress feelings that he cannot control? Very much so. He struggles with control, especially emotional control. There are feelings towards you that don't fit into the version of himself he wants to believe in. Instead of confronting them, he pushes them down. Alcohol temporarily disables that inner guard, which is exactly why he reached for it. Was there anger toward you, mixed with love? This is a complicated mix. It's not pure anger, and it's definitely not pure love either. There's frustration here, but it's not really about you as a person. It's more about the situation, the outcome, and his own helplessness. The love hasn't disappeared, but it's tangled with resentment, disappointment, and self-blame, creating emotional confusion. Did he want to forget you? Or on the contrary, to feel closer to you through alcohol? What I see here is not an attempt to erase you from his mind. Forgetting you would actually be easier than what he chose. Alcohol, in his case, worked like a bridge. It lowered the barriers and brought him emotionally closer to you, even if you weren't physically present. He wasn't running away from the memory of you. He was unconsciously running toward it, just without having the courage to face it sober. Who was next to him when he got drunk? There were people around him, but not truly close ones. This feels like company without depth. Someone physically present, but emotionally distant. He didn't feel fully understood there, which is important, because it explains why his words started spilling out without much filtering. When a person feels unseen, they sometimes overshare just to feel real for a moment. Did he choose the person he was talking to on purpose? No conscious strategy here. He didn't sit down and think, this is the perfect person to confess everything to. It was more about who happened to be available at that moment. The truth came out not because the listener was special, but because his internal control weakened enough to let it out. Did he feel safe enough with that person to tell the truth? Safe is a strong word. Comfortable would be closer. He didn't feel deeply protected or understood, but he felt that the consequences wouldn't be immediate. There's a sense of emotional recklessness here, like, whatever happens, happens. That false sense of safety is typical when alcohol is involved. Was it a man or a woman who heard his confession? The energy points more toward a woman. Not necessarily a romantic interest, but someone with whom emotional topics are more socially acceptable. He allowed himself to sound vulnerable there in a way he rarely does with men. Did he expect his words to be passed on to you? He didn't expect it, but somewhere deep inside, he wouldn't be shocked if it happened. It's like part of him almost wanted the truth to reach you indirectly, without him having to take responsibility for saying it directly. That's a very conflicted inner state. What was the very first thing he said about you when he got drunk? The first thing wasn't dramatic or loud. It was something simple, almost casual, but emotionally loaded. Something like a memory, a small detail, or a comparison. Those first words carried nostalgia rather than anger. That tells me a lot about what sits at the core of his feelings. Did he speak about you with warmth or with bitterness? Warmth dominates here. Even when frustration appears, it doesn't cancel out the affection. He may have complained, but the tone wasn't cruel. It sounded more like a man disappointed in the outcome, not someone trying to destroy your image. There's respect here, even under the influence. Did he praise you while drunk? Yes, but in a very unguarded way. Not loud compliments, more like honest admissions. He spoke about your qualities as if realizing their value only after losing them. These were not rehearsed words. They slipped out naturally, which makes them especially telling. Did he complain about you while drunk? Here I need to slow this down and really explain the nuance. What came out of his mouth may have sounded like complaints on the surface, but energetically it doesn't feel like real obvinenia. It's more like emotional discharge. When he talked about you, he touched on moments where he felt misunderstood, where he didn't know how to act, where he felt smaller than his own expectations. And instead of saying, I failed or I was scared, he framed it in a way that sounded like, it was hard with her. This is very typical. He wasn't attacking your character. He was indirectly talking about his own weakness and confusion. There's no intention here to humiliate you or to paint you as the villain. What secret about his true feelings did he reveal? The biggest secret is that his feelings for you never really switched off. He pretended to move on, maybe even convinced himself for a while, but emotionally, he stayed connected. Under alcohol, he admitted that you still affect him deeply, that your presence in his life left a mark he cannot erase. He revealed that he still reacts to you emotionally, which means indifference never happened. This is something he would never say sober, because it contradicts the image of control he tries to maintain. Did he admit that he still loves you? He didn't use big, cinematic words. No dramatic, I love her forever speeches. Instead, it came out in indirect phrases, in tone, in the way he described you. Love here sounds like recognition of importance, like an understanding that what he felt was real and meaningful, and that it didn't just disappear. For him, admitting love directly is too vulnerable, but his drunk words circled very close to that truth. Did he admit that he misses you deeply? Missing you came through very clearly, especially in the way he spoke about everyday things, small habits, shared routines, the feeling of familiarity. He misses the way you existed in his life, not just as a partner, but as emotional support, as someone who grounded him. This wasn't nostalgia for fun times only. It was longing for emotional stability he lost. Did he admit that he regrets losing you? Regret is strong here, but it's quiet. Not loud self-pity, but a heavy, sinking realization. He understands now that what he had with you was rare, and that he didn't value it properly at the time. Under alcohol, he allowed himself to say things like, "I shouldn't have let that go," or "I messed that up." Sober, he avoids these thoughts because they hurt too much. Did he talk about moments with you that still hurt him? Yes, and these moments are very specific. Not the big dramatic fights, but subtle emotional wounds. Times when he felt he disappointed you, or when he sensed distance growing, but didn't know how to fix it. These memories still sting because they represent missed chances. He replays them internally more often than he would ever admit. Did he confess fears connected to you? Fear is actually at the center of this whole situation. He admitted, indirectly, that you scared him emotionally. Not in a bad way, but in a way that demanded maturity, responsibility, and openness. He was afraid of not being enough, of failing you, of being seen fully. Alcohol loosened his tongue enough for these fears to surface. Did he reveal why he could not be honest with you before? Honesty required emotional exposure, and that's where he shut down. He revealed that he didn't have the tools to communicate what he felt. He chose silence or distance because he didn't know how to say, "I'm overwhelmed," "I'm scared," or "I don't know what to do." Instead of risking vulnerability, he chose avoidance. Did he say what exactly he was afraid of in the relationship? The fear wasn't about you leaving. It was about him being revealed, being seen as imperfect, unsure, emotionally clumsy. He was afraid that once you truly saw all of that, you would stop respecting him. This fear made him defensive and emotionally closed, even though what he actually wanted was closeness. Did he admit his own mistakes? This is where alcohol really stripped away his armor. He didn't list mistakes like a formal apology, but he acknowledged them emotionally. He spoke about moments where he knew he acted wrongly, where his pride spoke louder than his heart. What's important here is that these admissions were not theatrical. They sounded heavy, almost uncomfortable, as if saying them out loud made them more real. He recognized that he withdrew when he should have stayed, that he chose control over connection, and that these choices cost him you. Did he try to justify himself in his drunk speech? At first, there was some self-justification, almost automatically. Phrases that sound like explanations rather than excuses. But as the alcohol worked deeper, those defenses weakened. The justifications became quieter, less convincing, even to himself. By the end of it, the energy shifts from, "I had reasons," to, "I didn't know how to do better." That's a very different confession, and it shows growth, even if it's painful. Did he blame you for something he never said out loud before? Here the answer is mixed. He didn't blame you for core issues or for the breakup itself. However, he did express feelings he never voiced, like feeling emotionally pressured or not knowing how to meet your expectations. This wasn't said with malice. It was more like a man finally admitting where he felt small or inadequate. These words come from insecurity, not from a desire to hurt you. What truth about your influence on his life came out? He revealed that you influenced him far more than he ever admitted. Being with you pushed him to see himself more clearly, and that wasn't always comfortable. You challenged his pravitsky, his emotional limits, and his self-image. Under alcohol, he admitted that after you left, he felt a loss of direction, as if a stabilizing force disappeared from his life. Did he say that you changed him? Yes, but not in a dramatic transformation narrative. He spoke about internal shifts. How after you, he thinks differently about relationships, about responsibility, about emotional honesty. Even if he hasn't fully grown into a new version of himself yet, the seed was planted by you. And he knows that without you, that growth would not have started. Did he admit that he compares other people to you? This comparison happens almost unconsciously for him. He admitted that others don't evoke the same depth of feeling. Not necessarily better or worse, just different, and often more shallow. This realization frustrates him because it makes moving on harder. He didn't expect you to become a standard, but that's exactly what happened. Did he reveal jealousy toward your current life? Jealousy surfaced, but it wasn't aggressive. more like a quiet discomfort. He wonders if you are happier without him, if someone else treats you better, if you have emotionally moved on. This jealousy is tied to regret. It's not about possession. It's about the fear of being replaced in a meaningful way. Did he talk about your personal qualities that impressed him? He mentioned qualities he used to take for granted. Your emotional intelligence, your ability to care deeply, your strength in difficult moments. Under alcohol, he spoke about these traits with admiration, almost as if rediscovering them. These weren't surface compliments. They were acknowledgments of who you are at your core. Did he mention your strength, your softness, or your intelligence? All three came up, but in different contexts. Your strength impressed him when he felt weak. Your softness comforted him when he felt overwhelmed. Your intelligence challenged him and sometimes intimidated him. Together, these qualities made you someone he still deeply respects, even if he couldn't fully handle it at the time. Did he reveal intimate details about your connection? Here he crossed a line he normally keeps very tight. He spoke about the closeness between you, not just physical, but emotional intimacy that felt rare to him. He described moments when he felt truly seen and accepted, and that's not something he experiences often in life. These details weren't shared to boast or to shock. They came out because those moments still live inside him. When alcohol removed his filters, he revisited that closeness as something sacred, something he didn't protect well enough. Did he say something he would be ashamed of when sober? Absolutely. And the shame is already forming in his subconscious. He admitted feelings that don't fit his usual self-image, like vulnerability, dependency, and emotional attachment. Sober, he wants to appear composed and self-sufficient. Drunk, he allowed himself to sound human, needy, and exposed. The next day, even if he doesn't remember every word, he will feel that uncomfortable sense of having shown too much. What emotion was the strongest in his drunk confession? The strongest emotion was regret mixed with longing. Not anger, not hatred, not indifference. It was that deep, heavy feeling of realizing something valuable slipped through his fingers. This emotion sat under everything he said. Even when he laughed or joked, that undertone didn't disappear. It's the kind of regret that doesn't scream, but quietly eats at a person over time. Was it love, regret, pain, anger, or nostalgia? If I had to describe it honestly, it was a blend, but regret and pain outweighed everything else. Love is there, but it's wounded. Nostalgia appears in flashes, especially when he remembers shared moments. Anger exists, but it's directed mostly at himself. This emotional cocktail explains why he struggles so much to move forward cleanly. Did he cry or become emotionally overwhelmed? He may not have cried openly, but his voice, his body language, and his pauses tell another story. There's emotional overwhelm here. Long silences, sighs, maybe that moment when someone stares into nothing and stops joking. That's his version of crying. He holds tears back even when drunk, but the pressure is obvious. Did he feel relief after saying all this? For a brief moment, yes. There was a sense of release, like finally letting out a breath he's been holding for months. But that relief doesn't last long. It quickly turns into vulnerability and fear. Relief and anxiety come hand in hand here, because truth feels freeing, but also dangerous to him. Did he feel fear the next morning? Fear follows him into the next day like a shadow. Even if his head hurts and his memory is foggy, emotionally he feels exposed. He worries about what he said, who heard it, and what it means. This fear isn't panic. It's a quiet dread, the kind that makes someone avoid messages or overthink every interaction. Does he remember everything he said? Not everything. Some details are blurry, some sentences lost. But the emotional core stayed with him. He remembers the feeling of opening up, of going too far emotionally. That's enough to make him uncomfortable, even without a full recollection of the words themselves. Is he afraid that you might find out? Yes, that fear exists, even if he pretends otherwise. Part of him dreads the idea of you knowing how deeply he still feels. Another part almost hopes you might hear something, because saying it directly feels impossible. This inner contradiction keeps him stuck between silence and longing. If while listening, you felt that this story resonates very deeply, if you recognized your own situation, your own emotions, then a personal reading can give you much clearer answers. In a personal session, I look only at your energy, your X, your connection, without generalization. Right now, the price for personal readings is very low, so this is a good moment to take advantage of it if you feel the inner call. Sometimes one honest conversation with the cards can bring more peace than weeks of overthinking.